right, welcome and thank you everyone for being here today. I apologize for the delay. We had a little delay getting online, and hopefully that's all taken care of now. But I really appreciate you all being here. Let's sit nice and tall and we'll close the eyes. Taking a breath in and a breath out. Just giving yourself the opportunity to land softly in this moment. And feel that your feet are grounded, that your body is grounded, that your mind is grounded. And that each breath in grounds you even more. And each breath out alleviates the fear, the stress, the indecision, the uncertainty that would cause a sense of ungrounding. Each breath out brings relief. You could even say to yourself, breathing in, I am grounded. Breathing out, I am relieved. Breathing in, I am stable. Breathing out, I am strong. Breathing in, I am. Breathing out, peace. And drawing the hands together in front of the heart. And with an intention for self-knowledge, deep faith, and abiding love, we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a breath in. Om. And I will share a mantra with you. Gananam tva ganapatigam havamahe kavin kavinam upamashravastamam Jestarajam brahmanam brahmanaspata anavshrinvanuti bisida sadhanam Mahaganapataye namaha, Mahaganapataye namaha, Mahaganapataye namaha. Bowing the head to the heart, releasing the hands down, drawing the face to center. And so we will not concern ourselves with the live feed at this point because it's not happening. I guess we're having an issue with the internet, so my apologies for that. But we will have the recording and I will post that up for everybody after the fact. So we meet here today on a very solemn day, in a very solemn week, in a very trying time for a very large percentage of the population of our nation and of the world itself. The Supreme Court, as you all know, has begun the dangerous work and the, I want to use the word irreconcilable work of setting the female back many years, stripping us of the sanctity of the choice of what to do with regard to our own body, our own mind, our own emotion, our own life. And some people would not agree with that statement, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. I start today's conversation by saying, you can believe whatever you wish to believe. You live your life the way you wish to live your life. But you have no right to force me to do the same as what you have chosen to do. That's my agency. That is your agency. Is that you will abide by your beliefs by your faith, by your understanding of self, and I will abide by mine. But not all people see it that way. And the inability to see a middle ground is what leads to war in that middle ground. That's what leads to battle. It's like I can envision in the olden days, the Bhagavad Gita is a story of a war that happened. And you've got one part of the battle on one side, and you've got one part on the other side. And they will come down into that middle road, that middle space, that space which is meant to be the common ground. And instead of having reverence for the sameness that we share, there will be a battle. And in the world today and in our nation now, I'm pretty sure that we could all agree that that battle is beginning. That women and men are taking to the streets across our country in both denial of the right of the Supreme Court to do what they did and also in support. There are your two sides. There is a third side too, though. Right? This is more a triangle and less a set of parallel lines. The third side is apathy, not caring which way it goes. Right? So we have a lot to consider with regard to the place in which we stand right now, the emotions that we feel, and the outcome that we wish to dedicate ourselves to. And here is where the yoga teachings are thick with wisdom, because what's one of the things that the yoga teaches us? It says, do not be attached to the outcome. Be attached to the good work, to the path itself. Because the outcome is not guaranteed. And what has just happened is proof positive of that. We thought we had it, right? Roe v. Wade, it's done. Even those justices said, it's done, it's settled law. But it wasn't true, was it? If it was, it would still be in practice. But it was taken away. So the outcome is never guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is that we each must now walk a path. And on that path, we must make choices. What will we contribute to from here out? How will we take care of ourselves? How will we nurture the inner feminine that feels violated by all of this? And again, no matter which side you fall on this issue, there's a sense of violation on both sides. And the number one violation is, why can't you understand how I feel? Putting blame into the other side of things. If you only understood, we wouldn't be here. So this is affecting both sides in a lot of different ways. And the choices that we need to make on our path as we walk through this experience is how we're going to deal with it or not deal with it. Which part of that triangle do we fall on? Are we showing up because we support Roe v. Wade and a women's right to choose? Are we showing up because we don't support Roe v. Wade? Or are we not showing up because we're apathetic and we don't think it matters one way or the other? If we're showing up in favor of or not in favor of the woman's right to choose what happens to her own body, one of the things that we really need to do to support ourselves is acknowledge what just happened and the emotional effect that has had on our hearts and minds. That there is a sense of something being taken away, of something being stolen, of something being violated. And with every experience that we have that has some component like that to it, there's a necessity for grief work. There's a necessity to acknowledge, I feel grievous. I feel deep grief within my soul. And then to allow that grief to be present, but not to be overtaken by it, if possible. To allow that grief to be present and to honor it, whatever your background and story is, but not to be overtaken by it in such a way that you feel hopeless, that this is somehow the end. It's not the end. It's now the beginning. It's not the end. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of another part of the path. It's the beginning of, yes, another battle. It's the beginning of another growth in community. It's the beginning of another learning. It's not the end. I want to be clear that Roe v. Wade was not completely overturned. It was sent back to the states to decide. And so the ones who are overturning Roe v. Wade are the states that are in line with a different ethic than what you might be, what I might be. But in other states that are aligned with a woman's right to choose, Roe v. Wade stands in this moment safe and still there. It's important that we remember that. It's important that we remember that because not all has been lost. Even though that's where the mind tends to go to first, they say all's been lost. But not all has been lost. The greater percentage of people in this nation support Roe v. Wade, support a woman's right to choose what happens to her body. And let's pray that that greater percentage of people commit themselves to the action of protecting that right. And while doing that, find a way to build the bridges of respect, of acknowledgement, and of personal agency. Not just in the circles that we might travel in as, pro-choice or anti-choice, but to somehow find a way to respect each other and to respect the agency of each other, that, you know what, she has a right to choose for herself to carry to term. She has a right to choose for herself not to. And she has a right to choose to not have children. And she has the right to choose to be with a woman. And she has the right to choose to be with a man. And she has the right to choose to be with both, or either, as her life sees fit. And she has a right to choose however she wishes to live her life. She has a right to choose to work. She has a right to choose not to work. She has a right to choose, as simply as she has a right to choose what car she drives, what vegetables she eats and what her favorite food is, where to go to school, what job to take if she takes a job. It's as easy as that. She has the right to all these other things too. Whether they fall on the side that you support or not, that right is also theirs. Does that make sense? But right now, because I kind of feel like there's this feeling that all has been lost, there's this idea that it's you against me, it's them against us, and that it's an irreconcilable chasm that lies between us. But nothing is irreconcilable, not really. The factor that's missing here is acknowledgement of freedom. And this is what yoga teaches us. Yoga teaches us freedom. That you ultimately have freedom. No matter what the Supreme Court says. Is it helpful that the Supreme Court decided in favor of Roe v. Wade all those years ago? Of course. Saved a lot of lives. Made women's right to choose more obvious and accessible. But just because they've now changed their minds doesn't mean that that right doesn't still exist. It does. And so now the work becomes not resting back into the ease of a Supreme Court decision that was only ever temporary in nature, depending upon how conservative the politicians are that run the country, but to rest back instead into the work of the support groups necessary to maintain safety and dignity and alliance of community between us. That if you need something, I am a safe space for you. And that we are a safe space for each other. And that includes those women on the other side of the issue. That if they should ever choose the freedom of their choice, that they too are welcome in the sanctuary of our community. Because it is not one woman's right to choose. It is every woman's right. And we have the right to change our mind too. So, as I was thinking about how to talk about this today, how to approach this today, there were so many wonderful thoughts that came to my mind. And, resiliency is absolutely one of them. Community is absolutely another. This seemingly unfathomable chasm that lies between the yeas and the nays seems like another one. Yoga is, of course, and the freedom that it espouses is, of course, another one. And it's all a lot, and it seems very overwhelming right now. And it might even seem impossible to say, well, I'm so angry right now, I'm so pissed, I don't even care about the well-being of those other people who support the other side. But here's the thing. I want to read something to you. Just give me a moment, I gotta pull it up on my screen. We often complain about other people's fundamentalism. But whenever we harden our hearts, what is going on with us? There is an uneasiness, and then a tightening and a shutting down. And then the next thing we know, the chain reaction begins, and we become very righteous about our own right to kill the mosquito or yell at the person in the car or whatever it might be. We ourselves become fundamentalists, which is to say we become very self-righteous about our own personal point of view. And that's from Pem Chodron's Practicing Peace in Times of War. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's not a time to fight. I'm not saying it's not a time for battle. In fact, it very much is, at least in my opinion. We need to rally. We need to vote. We need to run for office. We need to be heard. We need to raise our voices. But we also need to maintain our humanity. We need to not other the other side. We need to not do to them what has been done to us, lest we become that which we are so very afraid of ourselves. So it seems to me that in all of this, some of the very important things that we absolutely could be addressing are the necessity of self-care and the acknowledgement of the grief that we feel and the anger that we feel, the very righteous anger that we feel in all of this. And finding a way to come together, to huddle together, to talk together, to cry together, to sing together, to do rituals together, whatever it is that we're called to do, that we come together and do it, and we don't just wallow in the misery of our own sense of, oh my God, everything has been torn away and it's over. We need to find within ourselves the strength to continue by understanding it is not over. It actually is only now beginning. The second thing is to maintain our humanity and our compassion through this. I read a post where someone was saying it's time to light the torches and burn down the buildings. And no. When has violence ever answered anything? I mean, it's understandable to want to burn down, okay? It's understandable. But remember that if you or I don't have an understanding of our own compassion and a practice of our own compassion, whatever building we set on fire, we are more than likely going to trap ourselves in it as well. So there has to be a better answer than burning down the buildings. Because what is that going to? Is that going to end fundamentalism? No. Is that going to change the decision that just came down in a way that will have some longevity to it? No, it won't. If you need to burn something down, then go into your backyard and build a small fire. It's called a yagna. And sit there with the fire. And imagine all obstacles to your self-knowledge burning away. All obstacles to your understanding of what needs to happen next in your life, on your path, with your resources, with your willpower. May all those obstacles be burned away. If there must be fire, let it be fire for the better and not fire for the worse. If there must be anger, let it be anger for the better, for the betterment of us, not for the detriment of us. And if there must be a battle, then let it not be a battle of hatred that's based in hate or based in a kind of vengeance that points the finger only. Let it be a battle that is fought because all women, not just the one in our corner, but for all women, whether they can see it or not. Let the battle be because of compassion and love and a longing to alleviate suffering, not create it. So for this, we need resiliency. We absolutely need resiliency. And again, we can come back to the yoga, and I'm not talking about just your typical 1-hour yoga class. I'm talking about the yoga, the teachings of yoga. And over the years in my studies, what I have found in the teachings of yoga are that, and it's very clearly explained in many of the scriptures, is that there's two ways, basically, at a minimum, to exist. One is to be always sending out your energy, and one is to be conserving your energy. If we're always sending out our energy for every small little thing, reaction becomes a chronic behavior that depletes us. And most of us, I'm very sad to say, but most of us are already at that place of depletion, are we not? It tends to be the world we live in today, where we're accessible 24/7, where, it just seems like it's one crisis after another, until the smallest little thing, like someone taking your parking spot becomes a crisis. So we've kind of misplaced the ability to be level-headed. I don't know if that's the right word right now, but we've certainly expended our energy in the past several years in ways that were not highly useful to us and that have left us feeling shaken. And you know what happens if you try to put something heavy on something that is not stable, that is shaking, is that it eventually breaks. And what has happened in our nation this week is that heaviness. We need to restabilize ourselves. We need to stop sending our energy out to every little thing, and we need to conserve it. Increase our own inner resiliency by recognizing right action at the right time for potentially the right purpose, for the right purpose. My grandmother used to say, pick your battles, because you can't fight every one. She's true, it's true. But nowadays, choose the battle that has the most impact. And draw your energy in from other distractions. So, do you stay up late at night watching sitcoms and not go to bed until 1 a.m.? Do you eat mostly fast, non-nutritional food? Do you waste a lot of your breath gossiping? Stop it. Pull that energy back into yourself. And then the energy that you save by not committing those other types of behaviors where it's not economical use of your energy, now you've got some energy. Go to bed at the right time of night, 10 o'clock, somewhere reasonable like that. Eat healthy, nutritious food to keep your physical body healthier. Stop gossiping because that tires out your voice. How will you ever raise your voice for the rights of women if you have no voice to raise because you've spent it all talking badly about people? Gossip is one of my pet peeves. It just is. But it's true, is it not? It's almost like the boy who cried wolf. You've always got something to say about something, So why should we listen to you now? Well, no, you don't always have something to say about something. You have something to say about this. And your voice is drawn in. The energy of that sacred sound. Your voice is sacred sound. And then when you speak with power and dignity and confidence and willpower and power that has not been weakened by things like gossip. Yeah. Otherwise, complaining is another one. Otherwise, whatever comes up, it's not that it won't be authentic and come from your heart, but it will have the vulnerability of becoming merely another complaint. There, I've said it, it's good enough, there's nothing else I can do. When in fact, when we speak with conviction, when we speak with energy, when we speak with power, we understand that there must be action following those words. There must be action following those words, whether that action is gathering the community up, creating safe spaces and sanctuaries for women who no longer have access, finding routes to bring them to have access, whatever it happens to be. The willingness to put your own self at risk, to remove the risk from another. If we get caught up in the idea that we're just complaining, if we fall to that part of the ego where this just becomes a mouthing only, then where will we ever find the bravery to truly show up for the people who are going to need us? Does that make sense? Yeah. There's too many people who are warriors in mouth only right now. We're all warriors, of course, but there's too many people who are like, I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. Where's your war? It's everywhere. You must be tired. Who are you showing up for right now? Oh, I can't show up for anybody. I'm too tired. Yeah, go home and take a nap. Go eat some good food. Go save yourself. Cultivate your resiliency, and then come back actually a warrior. Actually a warrior. Not a warrior in word only or name only. We have our work set out for us, and it is a complicated matter, and it's not easy. And they're not just going to take it back. They're not just going to be like, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. There's a battle on multiple levels now. We can say prayers and send thoughts and energy that politicians do the right thing and bring a woman's freedom into law. But there's no guarantee of that. We can pray and have good thoughts and send good energy that some of those individuals who oppose women's freedom will have a change of heart once they are attacked for some freedom that they currently have that is not guaranteed by the Constitution. Let's look at interracial marriages, same-sex marriages, the right to vote, freedom of minorities. We have to, we need to. We must keep the door open for collaboration with those who have a change of heart. And at the same moment, not accept their willpower, their dedication to their side of the argument as a reason for weakening our own. Don't allow their perceived strength to be the reason you lose your faith, that you lose your hope. As a matter of fact, become stronger than they are. Become stronger than they perceive to be. And the way that we do that is, again, by building community, by having plans in place, by working toward the alleviation of the suffering that this is going to bring about, because we know we can't count on any particular outcome. We just can't. So what we can count on is our ability to work together, like-minded individuals, to bring a greater amount of safety and accessibility to those who need it. I kid you not, in this moment right now, every single person in this room is fine. In this moment right now, your access is not inhibited in any way, shape, or form. You are in a state that has chosen access is available. Is that right? Would you agree? If you're from Pennsylvania, if you live in Pennsylvania, that's the matter, right? So we could also say that if we're sitting here in any way, shape, or form saying, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, it's actually not yet. It's happening to your sister, to your daughter, to your granddaughter, to your friend who lives in one of those places in the United States that don't have access now. So the more that we remain kind of in this state of only being self-centered in the way that this is impacting us, we are handicapped in our ability to support them. We need to step back and realize we have a major privilege right now. And that privilege is that for the time being, we are in a state where we don't have to protect ourselves in this moment as much, other than maybe going out and being active politically, socially, because we do have elections coming up. But in this moment, what can you do to support your sisters elsewhere? A lot of people are posting things online like, these are the companies who are willing to pay for travel, for women to go and have abortion elsewhere if they're in one of those states that have now taken the right away. The problem is this: if we're relying on that handful of companies to take care of some of the women in those areas, what we're not considering is the impact of the legal trouble that they're going to come into, and how much willpower they have to stay the path in the face of legalities, because in some of those states now, even leaving the state to go have an abortion elsewhere is a legal issue now. I know it's an atrocity, isn't it? It's an absolutely atrocity. It's one that makes me want to pull my hair out. But pulling my hair out isn't going to help. Thinking about, instead, who are the organizations that are working for really positive change that I can support in some way, shape, or form? Can I reach out to somebody? You all have a voice, Is there somebody you can reach out to? Do you have family in California, or not California, but in Texas? Sorry, California. Do you have family in Texas or in one of these other states that are currently under, attack, that you can reach out to them and say, hey, I just want to tell you specifically, I want to reach out to you. Hey, Jackie, I'm here for you. If you need me, this is my number. If your friends need me, this is my number. Call me. And don't just post it on Facebook. Because you know who reads Facebook? Your friends who are here. And maybe a couple that you have elsewhere. But the people who are potentially going to need you don't know you. So they're not going to read your Facebook post. It's not enough to put it up on Facebook. I do it too. I post there as well. With the hopes that maybe, if it's there, maybe it will help somebody, support somebody, give them information they need. But the reality is that we have voices for a reason. Right? And that's not to hide behind our computer only. It's to also reach out and let them hear your voice. Let people hear your voice. The unity in your voice, the strength in your voice, the compassion in your voice. I am here for you. I am here for you. The voice and hearing the sound of the voice means more than an email or a post on Facebook ever could. It means that you conserved enough energy within yourself to reach out, to let them know in some way, shape, or form that you're here, a resource for them. And then you know what that does? On some level, it opens up a little tiny window of opportunity that maybe then that they'll muster up enough to do the same. Maybe they'll muster up enough to do the same, enough energy to come out of the fear a little bit, while, of course, still honoring the fear and honoring the anger and doing the work of the grief, but also recognizing that, well, maybe if enough of us reach out, there'll be a big enough network, almost like a safety net, and maybe fewer will fall through. I will go on and say that there are particular segments of the population that we need to be really supportive of right now, and those are not white women. Those are women of color. Because women of color are the ones who are going to be affected by this in ways that most people in this room probably can't even begin to understand. Typically, the network that surrounds a woman of color from a lower socioeconomic area is much smaller than the network that you're capable of. So it becomes important, vitally important, that we, as white privileged women, get out of our comfort zone. Yes, we have to support people in our own network, people who we're close to, whatever it is that they look like, whatever color their skin is. But we also need to go to those areas that are not as easily accessible. Does that make sense? Reach out. Even if it's to a stranger, and just say, hey, I just want you to know, whatever side of this you fall on, if you need me, I'm here for you. If you need me for safe passage, if you need me to listen, if you need me, I'm here for you. I might not agree with you for everything, but I am still here for you. This is the way that we come through this, is to reach out in support of those in need of us, as well as taking care of ourselves. Boy, is that big. That's so big, But if you think about it, that's how dedicated are you to the rights of women? If you get a new job, and you like the new job you got, it's important to you. You get a good paycheck maybe, good benefits maybe, right? You dedicate yourself to that job, and you work that job 40, 60, 80 hours a week. I know when I first started the foundation, I was working easily 80, 90, even sometimes 100 hours a week. I was just sharing with someone yesterday My husband would oftentimes call me from the bedroom at 3 a.m. Are you coming to bed yet? And I'd be sitting there making flyers and sending out emails and doing all this stuff because it mattered to me. It became my job. It wasn't just a passing, it would be nice if somebody did this. It wasn't a passing complaint. It wasn't a passing, fantasy. It was something that became invested in. And if the freedom of women means something to you, then it needs to become something that you are invested in. It needs to become like, I hate to say it this way, but your job, right? Something that you dedicate your time, energy, and resources to. And if you're dedicating your time and energy and resources to the fundamental rights of women and ensuring that those fundamental rights are somehow, in some way, shape, or form, at some level protected, then it means that there are other things that you can no longer do. Or at least not as often. Because you need to conserve your energy. You need to rein it in so that you can have the energy within yourself necessary to pursue that which matters to you. And just from my own perspective, and this is my opinion, I don't expect anybody to agree with me. And I know that I'm going to get some flack for this. I'm fine with that. A woman has a fundamental right to choose what happens to her body from the moment she is born into that body until the moment that she dies. Every single decision is that woman's right. Have the baby, don't have the baby. Have the medical procedure, don't have the medical procedure. Continue living or choose to die. That's also your choice. That's also your choice. Freedom to choose is freedom to choose. And if that freedom is taken away from us, the psychological damage of that results in hopelessness, aimlessness, and apathy. So don't let that be your story. Nope. Don't let that be your story. Come into a deep faith that this is not the end, this is the beginning. The work that's to come is going to be hard. It's going to need you and your energy. The more that you can bring your energy forward in a healthy, vibrant way, the more you'll get done. The more hearts you'll reach. The more your voice will be heard. The more you come forward in a fit of just vengeance, and I'm not saying that there isn't righteous vengeance. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there isn't righteous anger. But the reality is anger is a fire, and a fire will only burn so long before it burns you out. So be mindful how much of that you're putting into this mix. If you come at this from a place of, this is a fundamental right, I will not be quiet. I will not stop talking. I will not stop fighting for it. This is a fundamental right. I don't need to be angry to say that. I don't need to be vengeful to say that. And I even don't need to look at the Supreme Court and say, how dare you? Because let's face it, we already knew, didn't we? Mm-hmm. If you didn't, I don't know what planet you're living on. Because we already knew. All the telltale signs were there. So we shouldn't be surprised at all. When you have a conservative court that leans conservatively, you're going to have conservative decisions. And there is nothing safe from that. Similarly, when you have a liberal progressive court, the court is going to lean liberally and progressively, and nothing is safe from that either. The outcome is not guaranteed, other than to say, there's no surprise here. So rather than taking so much of your inner energy and using it to burn the fire of, I'm so surprised and shocked and appalled, this is not a surprise. Now I need to get to work. Now I need to decide just how much this really does mean to me, and how much it really means to all the other women out there who have similar views to mine. And how can I support them? What can I do? And if you don't know, then reach out. Reach out to women's centers. Reach out to clinics. Reach out to women. Reach out. And start building the connections that are necessary to get us through this, so that we can walk through this. Perhaps, if you've got 20 people holding each other, walking into the wind doesn't seem so strong. But if you've got one person walking into the wind, it's, a strong wind seems almost an unbearable feat. And so we walk together through this. Maybe it will be just a little bit more, maybe it'll be just a little bit more easeful. A little bit less assaulting. And a little bit more healing, because those are the connections that you'll carry through past whatever outcome comes next. I hate to say the outcome, but it's one outcome in a series of outcomes. We didn't always have these rights written down on paper, and yet we have always had these rights. So what we're seeing here is not the establishment of your right to be free. What we're seeing here is an argument over whether or not you are, by people other than you. But in your heart, you already know you are free. You already know that your choices are your own. You already know that. And no one can take that from you. And when yoga teaches us, when it states, in this moment you are perfectly okay, that's what it means. It means that while Samuel and Clarence and the others are sitting there bickering back and forth about, who's going to write the first brief, you're still free. And even after they sign it, inherently you are still free. And even though they and others put laws in place that contradict that wisdom in its essence will not be contradicted, because in its essence it is true. You are free. And if you sit with that long enough and just feel that within your own self, you'll know it to be true. It doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a consequence to the way that these people are writing their briefs and their laws. Of course, there's going to be consequences around, or just everywhere from that. But Gandhi, when he went back to India, he was told by his friend to walk in the alleyway behind the main road, because it was illegal for Hindus to walk on the road with the white people. And that any Hindu who dared to do so got beaten down, imprisoned even, and maybe killed. And Gandhi looked at him and said, I am not going to walk in the alleyway. I'm walking down the middle of the road, because I too am a human being, and that is my freedom. And so he did. And he got beaten. And he was put in jail for a while. And even though those horrific things happened to him, he still always knew the ultimate freedom was his and his alone. His and his alone. Similarly, when he died, he was murdered. The assassin came up to him and pointed a gun at him. And he had a choice in that moment. He could freak out. He could say, I hate you, please don't kill me. He could react, but he didn't. He looked at him and he said, I forgive you. Because in that moment, he also knew that ultimately the freedom is what is true. And if he had gone about this in some other way, he would have undermined his own freedom, become hopeless, and given up on knowing the truth of his own self. I know that's a lot. And I know that there's a lot of points in there that would really kind of require a lot more conversation, a lot more discussion, but it's a starting place. So if I had to break it down to 3 things right now. Number 1, sit with your grief. Do not let it consume you, but do not avoid it either. Don't let it run your day or ruin your life. Don't give it that kind of power, but address it, because the grief that's coming up as a result of what's happening in the world today, whether it's the Supreme Court or any of the other things that are going on, the shooting in of Uvalde, the war, all of it. The grief that's coming up inside of you is the inner child and the inner woman and the inner man saying, I've been assaulted by this somehow. It's reminding me of my own traumas. I'm scared. I'm fearful. So to sit with that inner self, the inner child, the inner man, the inner woman, and to just spend some time exploring that feeling and saying, I hear you. I hear you're afraid. I hear you don't know what to do. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to seek support, not only for ourselves, but for those who need us. The second thing is to remember your compassion is more powerful than your hate. Your love is more powerful than your hate. Your goodness is more powerful than your vengeance. So yes, there is righteous anger. Yes, there is absolutely. But add it in small doses. Don't give it the reins to the horse. When you add too much salt to your meal, what happens? It doesn't taste very good. You don't enjoy the outcome because there's too many regrets. I should have tempered the salt. I should have tempered my anger. A little bit of anger can be a motivator. Too much anger can be violent unnecessarily. So just sit with that. And the third thing is conserve your energy. Now is not the time to waste yourself. Now is the time to support yourself by adopting healthy habits, sleep, rest, food, exercise, friendship, conversation, like-minded community. Now is not the time to become lazy or lethargic or hopeless or anything that might fall into that realm. Now is the time for you to practice. Now is the time for you to practice, because your practice is like the always giving gift. It fills you up over and over and over again. So now is the time to practice. Dive deep into your practice so that you will be strong enough when a moment of great difficulty really does come. And you're standing there face to face with a woman who has someone pursuing her. You need to be the strong one in that moment to support her. But you can't be strong if you've weakened yourself. If you haven't addressed your own fear. If you haven't allowed yourself to go into the depth of this. There's so much more that I would love to say, but I feel like I've said enough. So I'm going to open it up to you and just ask you, are there any questions or reflections, anything that you have to say here that you would like to share? Yes.
I think I know the answer to a question, because I think you touched on it about, if you are going to take a stance. I had taken a stance about something personally on Facebook, and it was a racial issue, and I received such hate and even death threats, and it was pretty devastating. And what was horrible, within like an hour, my children were calling me, and like they were like terrified, and I was just astounded at the hatred that was just out there and directed towards me. But I think what happened though is I didn't realize I was engaging in such a battle. To me, it just seemed obvious that this was wrong, and I thought that people would support me, but the majority of the people who came out didn't support. So I think what you're saying though is, if we go into that battle, we need to have that support. We just can't go at it individually.
Well, the first thing that I'm saying is know the battle that you're going into. First of all, if you're going to be entering into any kind of a battle, the kind of one of the first understandings you need to have is that there's going to be resistance to what you bring forward. People are going to be, what's the word? Poisonous. If you're coming into a situation and telling people that they're wrong about something, or telling people that you need this to be done another way, or you want them to say it another way, or that their feelings are invalid, they're going to fight back. And they're going to be vicious about it. Absolutely, for the most part. So the first thing to know is that the moment that you decide to step onto a battlefield, you are an open target. Make peace with that. And don't take it personally, because it's not you that they're attacking. Even if they're giving you a death threat, it's not really you that they're attacking. It's your words saying that their words are not valid. That's what they're attacking. They're defending themselves. So if you look at it that way, they're defending themselves. They're not attacking you. They're defending themselves. And they think that the only way that they can defend themselves is by saying what they said and by scaring you off. If they scare you off, if they undermine you, if they find a weak place in your argument where you flub, then they've proven that there's validity to their side. So you have to go at the thing understanding that this is a whole psychology, and that the moment that you say something in support of something, I don't care, milk is white. Like, someone's going to come forward and say, no, actually it's not. It's not. You're wrong. There's always going to be somebody, no matter how simple the statement is that you're making. Now you're making complicated statements, which aren't really complicated, but some people they are. Of course there's going to be backlash. Ignore it. Don't engage in it. If the backlash comes, it's going to keep coming if you keep instigating it. So don't instigate it. This is the way they feel. You're not going to change their minds. And the second thing is, don't do that on Facebook. Yeah. Seriously, on Facebook there is no conscience. You know what? Somebody will sit there and tell you, "I see you. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna rip your head off. I'm gonna da 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 da." Then you see them, they're like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Facebook is nothing but a lie for many people. It's like this character that they've created in a, what do they call that? Cosplay. Right? Is it cosplay? Yeah, Facebook is cosplay. Right? Does that make sense? It's like so many people put on this persona.
I call it fake book.
Fake book, yeah. It's not at all who they are. And if you saw them in person, they would never say those things to you. Never. So it doesn't make any sense to try to fight the battle on a ground that's false. You can't. So instead, you hear what they're saying, maybe there's something else, if you even need to do anything with regard to what's happening there. Or are you you putting yourself into a situation of a bunch of people just blowing off their own kind of steam and not really intending to do anything with it, and now suddenly you find yourself in the middle of a hellstorm? Or is there actually a victim? And if there is, if they're targeting a person, if they were sending these messages to a person, then maybe instead of going after them, report them to Facebook, they'll either do something or they won't. Go to the person being targeted and say, how can I support you? Don't go to the person and be like, oh my God, what they're doing is so wrong. I totally see how you're being victimized. I'm going to hear. No, just go and say, how can I support you? You see, we have to take our own self kind of out of it a little bit, right? In some instances, and come into the service of the needs of others around us. So that would be the one thing that I would say, and I do apologize, Anne-Marie, because I think I got off your question.
No, it was good. The interesting thing was I saw that it was getting all of these, like within an hour, it got like 800, and it was just, and someone else was with me and they were reading the things that I said, I don't want to read it. I said, I don't care what they say. And then even just people but nothing happened. And I told my kids, these are people who are bullies and nothing is going to happen. And I'm sorry that you're afraid, but I was just afraid that I felt that I put them in jeopardy. And being a mother,
oh yeah,
I mean, you never want to do that. So
it's a great lesson for you, and it's a great lesson for the kids. And so the answer might be to go back to them and say, so let's sit down and talk about what happened. Mm-hmm. How do you think I could have? Because all you can do is take responsibility for your own actions. You can never say, what should I have told them? How should I have? No, you say, what could I have done differently when I came across this post? Do you think? How could I have handled this differently? How would you have handled it? And let's talk about the pros and cons of that. Use it as a teaching moment for your kids. Don't apologize. You were very human in the moment, and you responded from a place that was, aligned with what you were feeling. So don't apologize for it, but learn from it and use it as a teaching moment in your conversation with your kids so that they too learn from it. Because what they had was a reaction to it. My mom is not safe. Well, let's just slow down. Because there's no evidence of that. What there is evidence of is that there's a lot of anger in this world. What there is evidence of, and then through that kind of mindful conversation, maybe you uncover if there really is a threat or not. Is there something that you need to do? Or is it just that these are a bunch of people, angry people, blowing off steam, and you kind of got caught up in the middle of it, and you're with us or you're against us mentality, right? You're either with them or you're against them, and if you're against them, well, you get called every name in the book, right? What is this, though? This is evidence of the suffering that's present in the world. This is evidence of the suffering that is present in the world today. That people will attack you for saying something positive and good. That people will attack you for using the word freedom unless you use it in context to what they want as their freedom. That people will attack you for no reason at all, especially on places like Facebook. Yeah. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you for your question and your story, for sharing that with us. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? How are you all feeling? If you had a word right now, just like 1 or 2 or even 3 words right now about how you're feeling about everything that's happening within our nation and the world, what would it be? And I'll put Heather on the spot first.
I feel good just because of what we study here. I understand that people are fearful, and that is why they attack you, because of their fears. And then just trying to understand what their fear is really coming from. Yeah. Maybe is racism a fear of the white people becoming the minority? I think that's where their fear really comes from. I feel fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I am hope that one or two people start to also try to get educated on where all this is coming from. Who knows?
And the other thing that I'd really love to say to that, thank you because for your comments, Heather, is that avoid this idea that if somebody isn't posting on Facebook, they're not doing anything. Because maybe they're actually out in the real world. Yeah. I actually had somebody, not with regard to this, but with regard to another situation, come to me and say, I'm really shocked that you're not being more verbal on Facebook about this. And I said, my work is not on Facebook. My work is in the world. So unless you're here and you're seeing that I'm, just kind of slouching around with a beard, not doing nothing, please don't make assumptions about me, Maybe right now I don't have time to post on Facebook because I'm answering messages and making phone calls and doing all these other things. So let's avoid that too.
And I also think the people that I want to reach have probably already blocked me.
True. This is so true too. Although I know if you haven't blocked me yet, but I'm sure that they're on the precipice. And I'm okay with that. And I love you all, whether you agree with me or you don't agree with me. I have love in my heart for all of you. And this is an argument that is not going to go away anytime soon. This is a calling. This is a calling to understand what freedom actually is. And as a society, we're getting entirely too caught up in who can control you. Who can I control? I can control you, I can control you, I can control you. Can't control myself, but that's okay, because I'll control you instead. Right? That's ignorance. One and only. That is ignorance. I will control you because I am incapable of controlling myself. Completely lacking in skills in that area, but I know how to beat, abuse, crack a whip, know how to coerce, manipulate, right? So they know how to control others. And yet they have zero control themselves. If they had more control, women would not be the target of this. And some women would not be being coerced into agreement with releasing their self-power, their self-agency, How about you, dear?
I feel very frustrated, and I wish the Supreme Court would have some mindfulness classes. Self-knowledge, self-awareness, yoga.
Yeah.
I because of my knowledge from here, I can understand where they're coming from. Like, I can understand their ignorance. So, and it's just very frustrating that.
And here's a double frustration, which is such a great word because it really is frustrating. Here's a double frustration. They won't do mindfulness classes or yoga. You know why? Because it's, the devil's work. Mm-hmm. Right? So.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. Yeah. Okay. Jackie. Thank you, dear.
I think I'm going to go based off like what Heather said and just like that I almost feel like safe, that I have like a space to go to and that we can like openly discuss about it and support each other with their opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Savannah?
I feel exhausted, exasperated, baffled that there are people who still can't grasp the fact that it is a choice. And it's not their choice, it's my choice, it's your choice. And that they hold their beliefs as fact for everyone, not just themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Exhausted is another great word, right? Yeah, totally. Anne-Marie?
I'm disappointed. I think I've been disappointed for a while. I mean, going to sleep and thinking that maybe we would have a woman president and then waking up to finding out, that's what just, from that moment on, I'm just I'm just really stunned, and I really thought we were just moving in the right direction. I was so thankful to have Obama, and just to see, I really thought maybe this hatred and underlining resentments was gone, and I was so thankful. And then to wake up to that was just, I think that was just such a blow. And so to see the reverberation of this happening, I'm just really disappointed, and I'm not sure what to do. And I do feel like I was frightened by what happened when I did take a stance, and but I think it was Roosevelt that said that evil prevails if good people do nothing, and that was what kept going on in my mind when I take a stance. That thought it's not a thought that it just comes to mind, that I feel like I have to venture out and I have to say something. And I don't want to put myself in harm's way or worry my children, but what I feel is if I don't say something, am I going to regret it later? To me it's like, so that's what kind of propels me to be brave enough. Thank you for this discussion. It's very helpful.
Absolutely. And disappointed is a really great word too, because I'm certain that so many people share that with you, and again, there was so much disappointment in the outcome several years ago, but again, not a surprise. And anything that happened after that, not a surprise. A disappointment, not a surprise though, because the human ego flip-flops and can go to any extreme, The question is not how come we didn't see this coming. We did see it coming. That's why everybody worked so hard. But the outcome is not ours, is not guaranteed. But the process is ours and ours alone, So we've seen that we can come together and we can lift each other up when we need to in the past. We were able to do that for the elections. We were able to do that for many different reasons. We can do it again. And we will. And not just for this, but for many things. The key is to take good care of yourself so that you don't become apathetic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. For the exhausted part, you have to know when to stop, step back, and really make sure you're filling your life with self-care. Like just everything that there is to do. Because if you can't fight the battle, if you're not feeling strong and fresh and, rested, all of that. And I think also getting people, what can we do? You're thinking about, okay, what can I really do? Because obviously whatever I do on Facebook isn't really going to do anything. But getting, registering voters and getting active with those groups of, we got to hit the young people. That's what happens. That's what happened in the election, right? Too many people were like, she's going to win.
I don't like her.
Or that she's going to win and we're not going to lose and not vote.
Yeah.
And took it for granted.
Yeah.
And then realized it didn't happen. So I think there's a lot of people like I know, group efforts to help just register voters. And you're not even saying how they're to vote. But yet we have to make sure that people understand that it's important to vote and to register. So that's another thing where you can put your efforts. And I feel that also I'm confused. I don't know that I understand the other side. Where is the fear? I understand the fear of racism, but I'm not so sure I understand where the fear is coming from with the pro-lifers.
I think that there's a lot of different ways that can be talked about, but some of the most commonly discussed perspectives are that there are parts of the Bible that have been interpreted and you know, some would say incorrectly, and some would say correctly, but that have been interpreted to mean, you know, that childbearing is the woman's responsibility, and that, you know, because of Eve's sin in the Garden of Eden, childbirth went from being a pain-free, I know, I can see you twitching back there. Hey, Mindy, I'll get to you in a minute. But is this ringing a bell to you from like Catholic school days or something, right? Yeah, so women were inflicted with the original sin. And as part of that original sin, childbirth went from being painless, like most other animals, to being painful. And that a woman had to bear that pain as retribution for that original sin, and then more. And that she would never be equal to Adam because she came from Adam's rib, right? And so Adam would always be her master, and she would always be subservient to him. And they take this literally. They don't look at it as like a storyline, or that she was actually something else, that she was actually wisdom. You know, I'm not going to get too much into that right now. But so that's one perspective that they have. And then coming, you know, through time into the modern day corporatization of religion, you want to have a healthy organization that's making lots of money, you got to have people belonging to that organization. If you don't have people belonging to that organization, and money is an important thing to you, may not be the only important thing, but if it's high up there in priority, then you need to make sure that you've got a base. And what's the best way to make sure you have a base? Is to utilize the teachings of the Bible, or to not to utilize them, but to interpret them, and then utilize the interpretation in a way that says, you need to have as many children as possible, you need to teach them in a certain way, you need to train their minds to agree with these teachings and to accept them as the only truth. And if you go against that, then you go against the organization. If you go against the organization, you will go against your community. And I'm not saying that Christianity is this across the board. I'm not. I know a lot of amazing Christians. I know a lot of amazing churches that do an amazing amount of work. But I also know that from my own experience as a Catholic, raised as a Catholic, went to school as a Catholic, I know what I was told. And I know that I was told that as a female, I had no place of power, no place of choice, no place. And even when it came down to physical trauma, I had no right to complain. None. So this is a mentality. This is a psychology, you know? And if you were going to talk to, and there's books out there that talk about it, if you were going to, in the more extreme cases, it's very cult-like. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to alienate anybody by saying that. But look, there's extremists in every tradition. There's extremists in Hinduism too. There's extremists in Islam. There's extremists in Christianity. There's extremists in spirituality. There's extremists in atheism. There's extremists in everything on all ends of the spectrum. So it's not just Christians. And Christians are not the only problem either. There's also toxic masculinity in this country. Yeah. Okay, Mindy, I know. Go. You got it, girl.
I mean, I was thinking, like, through experience of family members that have this, I mean, a lot of it is unhealed trauma. I mean, they've had trauma in their lives, and they go to that extreme, like, because they hold on to it like it's a life raft. And I'll give this really quick example of something that happened to me years ago, but we got into this conversation with someone in my family, and, you know, I went to school, Spanish major, I graduated from college, so I studied Spanish history. That was primarily what we did. And this person argued with me that Cortez was, you know, not a killer, that he didn't, you know, do all these things. And I said, how do you have this proof? Catholic Bible. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, I went to school for this, you know, and I was like, okay, there's two egos going at each other here. And I looked it up, and yes, it is true. So it's, you know, I think we're looking at this like, you're just not going to change some people's views about these things. That view is set in stone. That is, and that's a lifeline for this person. Those views are set, and you know, they have these things going on, but they're not going to change that view. So, you know, you're right. You make yourself better and stronger. stronger and work at yourself and put that out and use your energy wisely where it should go.
And thank you so much for all of that, Mindy. And I don't want to call the circumstances of today similar to the circumstances of slavery. But I do want to make one parallel, because you just said something. Yes, we make ourselves stronger, and we don't give in to the rhetoric. Slave owners and those who supported slavery in the past, their belief system was that blacks were not human, that they were not valuable, that they didn't deserve freedom, that they had no life value to them other than the slavery work. And here you have a community after community after community of people of color who chose not to believe that. They experienced the trauma of it. They carried the trauma forward. But they worked, and they worked, and they worked the Underground Railroads, and they worked in collaboration with like-minded individuals in other parts of the country to change that situation. So if we were going to pull inspiration from somewhere, and like I said, I'm not trying to say that this is like that, because they're completely different situations, but there is a psychology that overlaps both of them, and that is the psychology of you are lesser than me, therefore you have less freedom than I do. I should be able to control you. We can look to the strength of the black community in history and say, that's the strength that we need. That's the strength. We need safe passage for people who find themselves in predicaments where they don't have support around them. We need open lines of communication between ourselves. We need to get our own traumas in some kind of order so that we can muster the strength necessary to continue what has begun.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall. With the strength and the resiliency and the support of each other, we really will. And Shelley, would you like to share?
I mean, I feel heavy. I feel heavy with everything that's been happening. With the shootings, with people's attitudes towards guns, with this. But I will say I am still Catholic. Marginally. Like by a hair. But a lot of the Catholic people I know, and I think a lot of pro-life women that I know in general, come at that issue from a very rose-colored set of glasses. They have never been raped by their father. They don't know, they might not know anybody who was a victim of incest. They might not have ever seen with their own two eyes, but being a nurse and having many nurse friends, and one of the stories they told, one of a girl who had Down syndrome, who was delivering this baby, and this nurse told me it was the worst thing she'd ever seen, because this little girl had no idea what was happening to her. And even in my parish, we had a young couple who was they were from one of the most visible families in this parish, and she was right at the 24-week mark, and she developed HELLP syndrome. And of course, when you develop HELLP syndrome, the only way to stop that is to end a pregnancy. You've got to deliver those babies. And one baby died, and the other baby went on to have lifelong complications because of this extreme prematurity. But nobody would say what that was that you had to terminate the pregnancy. And terminating the pregnancy doesn't always mean outright killing the fetus. It might mean you need to deliver those babies, and the chips are going to fall where they're going to fall, or the mom is going to die. So all of those medical complexities and all of those nuances in medicine, they completely ignore. And I think because of my nursing background, that infuriates me, because you never know when that's going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
This family never expected that to happen.
Yeah.
Never. But these things happen. Missed abortions happen. Septic abortions happen. Women show up because they're pregnant and they might not have had medical care for a while. And a lot of cancers are detected because a woman is pregnant.
Yep.
And people don't realize that because it's not in their own experience. It's not in their own little, closed, happy community. And so they just don't see it. They don't think about it, and it doesn't factor. And it's well, that hardly ever happens.
They call it God's will.
Yeah, or did they just say it hardly happens? Like, oh,
It
that's
hardly
okay,
happens.
but
It's
it
not
happens
true.
to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It
It's
happens
happening
a
to
lot.
somebody.
And then they think that the person should have the capacity to pick up and to make it better somehow.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you haven't, as a community in general, we haven't been taught or taught the tools that are necessary for things to be better.
Yeah, and it's just that compassion for another person.
Completely.
Say, this is not my concern. I'm backing out of this. This is between you and your doctor. I have no clue. I am not an obstetrician. What possible, opinion do I have to share in this?
Yeah.
And part of it is that looking and then acknowledging with that. And I feel the same way about these shootings. Like, I felt like Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz should have gone into that classroom and they should have seen what
It
that
did.
was.
Totally.
They should have smelled that blood. They should have seen those bodies. They should have been forced to reckon with their decisions.
Yep.
Isn't that the issue that men don't have?
They don't.
They don't
It's just,
give birth, they're not, and so they're detached from.
Yep. Yeah, it's very true. And they're detached in a way that comes from a complicated and chronic ignorance of they don't really want to know either. They don't really want to know because, if you sit down and talk to some people, and I've had some conversations with people about this and just kind of trying to find a middle ground of understanding and, they're oftentimes kind of shocked when you share with them like the numbers of incest-based pregnancies, the number of rape-based pregnancies that no, a woman actually is not capable of expelling a pregnancy naturally after being raped if she doesn't want the baby. No, a woman is not capable of blocking a pregnancy if she has been raped. No. Because there's that thing. It's like, well, if it was a violent rape, then the body won't accept the baby and it'll expel it. And it's like, no, that's actually that's not true.
Who said that? I mean,
But people believe that though.
Yeah.
They believe that. I know someone personally that believes that.
Yeah.
or if they believe an ectopic pregnancy can be transferred into a uterus.
Right.
Not medically possible.
Not medically possible.
Never has been.
Yeah.
Probably won't be anytime in the future. And, it is just that it's willful ignorance. It's like, la, 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 I can't hear you.
And ignorance is ignorance. Ignorance is individual and it's societal. And I firmly feel that if a person wishes to go through life in a state of ignorance, that's their choice too. That's their choice. If that's what a person, man or woman, wants to believe, let them believe it. But do not impose that on me. Because my understanding is different. And I'm not so bold as to say my understanding is the only truth. But in my life, at this time, for me, it aligns with my heart. And therefore, that is what I will accept as the truth. And if somebody else doesn't accept that as the truth, that's not my business. I don't really care. Just don't impose that on me.
I said to a man I worked with, who was an older white man, and I said, a woman's right agency over her own body. It is as vital to our well-being as being able to breathe. And he looked at me and said, well, no, I wouldn't really go that far.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Marv. Thanks, Marv.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah. I think we're going to pause it there. Because I'm trying to remain mindful.
We're going to thank Marv for the end.
Yeah, we're going to thank Marv. That'll be the end of that one. But I do want to thank you all for being here and for engaging in this difficult conversation and for having an open heart and an open mind to the what was offered today, which is always only ever meant to be a support. And not only a support to like-minded individuals, but also a support to those individuals who just aren't sure, or who are apathetic, or who don't know which way to go, or who are rethinking those types of belief systems that are perpetually harmful to women. This is also meant to be a support to them, whether they know it or not. My heart and my service is open to everybody, no matter who they are. and what they believe. But I do, again, just want to say thank you to all of you for taking part in this today. And to know that on Thursday nights at 6:30, we're having safe spaces for the next 5 weeks, I think it is. So Thursday nights at 6:30, we're going to gather. Maybe we'll do it in here. I don't know yet. And it's kind of an amorphous class. We're going to do a little bit of like inner child work. Like there's going to be some rocking involved and some really super gentle type postures and some breathing practices and some reflection work too. Some conversation as well, where people are going to start, talking a little bit about how they're feeling, giving a name to it, how it's affecting them. And then just kind of talking about how we can begin to resolve some of these feelings, but not without first addressing them, respecting them, honoring these feelings, and utilizing the energy of these feelings in a way that's hopefully beneficial to us. So that's called Safe Spaces. It's on Thursday night, 6:30 for the next 5 weeks. And then I go to Ireland. So maybe we'll continue it when I come back if there's enough interest in it. But that will also be on Zoom for anyone who can't be here in person. There'll be a Zoom link, but you do have to pre-register online for that so that we know.
Will that be incorporated into like the third module?
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's sit tall and we'll just close the eyes. Just take a moment to breathe in and out and settle the energy, rein it in, hold it into the heart space, and let it be bathed in that beautiful light, the light of healing, the light of love, and the light of unity. And while we definitely need to do the work, and we may need to fight the battle, let us never lose sight of the truth. The truth of unity, the truth of healing, and the truth of oneness. And draw the hands together in front of the heart. We'll lift our voices in one Om. Hari Om. Jai Mata Di. Thank you all so much.
Namaste.
Enjoy the rest of your day. If you haven't had brunch yet, please do stop down to the kitchen and enjoy.